Good evening, good people. I am Kelly Suzanne Saulsberry, and welcome to Living Room Chats at Affinity, a podcast for brave conversations and bold voices. Before I go any further, I would just like to wish Affinity Community Services Executive Director Imani Rupert Gordon a very happy birthday. She celebrated her birthday, I believe it was yesterday, and she is someplace fabulous and wonderful. So I just wanted to say, Imani, happy birthday. I look forward to giving you this upon your return, or I'll put it on your desk, but happy birthday. And also, our beloved Imani is this year's recipient of the Pride Index's 12th Annual Esteem Award, along with my convo buddy tonight, Shannon Lynn Parker, who we'll be talking with shortly. So I want to say happy birthday, Imani, and congratulations on your very well-deserved honor. All right, Living Room Chats is my monthly podcast that takes place the third Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and is live streamed at Affinity Community Services in front of a live audience. My podcast dives into political advocacy, culture, identity, and spirituality with people from different backgrounds, walks of life, and perspectives. I have conversations that move beyond the safe and superficial to an authentic place where we can be ourselves, dare to question things, and candidly express what we think and how we feel. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by a live audience in Affinity's beautiful and cozy living room in Bronzeville on Chicago's South Side. Say hey, everybody. Hey. Thank you all for being here. And thanks to those of you tuning in via the live stream. You can join the conversation on social media at Affinity's Facebook page and Twitter pages using the hashtags LRC Affinity Podcast, LRC Kelly Podcast, and of course, I am Affinity. While I am happy to be part of the Affinity family, the views I express here are my own or the views of the individual guest. These views do not necessarily express the views or opinions of Affinity Community Services. I'm honored to have Shannon Lynn Parker as my conversation buddy tonight. Shannon is a transgender advocate, public speaker, community-centric leader, and manager of external relations for Howard Brown Health Center, an organization in Chicago whose mission is to eliminate the disparities in healthcare experienced by transgender, lesbian, gay, and bisexual people through research, education, and the provision of services that promote health and wellness. You can learn more about Howard Brown's excellent work by visiting them online at howardbrown.org. Prior to her current role, Shannon served as manager of the Broadway Youth Center's Youth Development Program and manager of Chicago Health Social Service Agency's Trans Life Project. Shannon is the first openly transgender woman to work in the Cook County Department of Corrections working with populations in protective custody, the inaugural Trans 100 awardee in 2013, the White House Speaker on National HIV and AIDS Strategy in 2015, Chicago Women's March Speaker in 2017 and 2018, and she is a recipient of the Henrietta Lacks Award, Women in Health in Chicago 2018 Award, and Equality Illinois' prestigious Freedom Award this year in 2019. Shannon is quoted as saying, quote, "Equality is the firmest pillar upon which human value stands. If I am named amongst those who are ambitious and maybe even crazy enough to believe that we, somehow through our actions, can leave this world a better place, if I have played some small part in reducing the burden of injustice, then I have lived a life well served." Although Shannon and I bump into each other from time to time, or actually more than that, at community meetings and events, we don't know each other well. But I've admired her advocacy work and her passion for the past several years, and we've had the opportunity to speak with each other at greater length the past couple times we've seen each other out and about. While Shannon is known by many of us, especially those of us in the Chicagoland area, for her incredible advocacy work and in her very public role, many of us do not know a lot of things about Shannon in terms of more of her personal life and the things that really drive her and move her, such as, for example, her upbringing in Louisiana and her life experiences that have significantly shaped who she is. What makes her jump out of bed in the morning, that makes her excited, what makes her want to pull the covers over her head, and those kinds of things. So tonight's conversation is particularly meaningful to some of us because there's more to who we are than what we do for a living and our public persona. So I'm looking forward to getting to know Shannon more, and I'm sure you all too. But first, let's give Shannon a warm and hearty welcome. Welcome.
Thank y'all for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah, I'm here. This is such a lovely space. It's cozy indeed.
Yeah, welcome to the Affinity living room.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, good.
All right.
So as I mentioned, many of us know you through your work and your very public role, as I just mentioned, the many things that you're a part of.
Yes.
But before you became an advocate and a leader and all of the wonderful things you are, you were a child.
I
Right?
was. I did not pop up from the sea foam like Venus.
Right.
Yes.
So you're a child, and you're a child who was born in Louisiana, and I know that your family has a very long history in Louisiana. So I'd love to learn more about that, your family roots there, and where you were raised.
Yeah. So, yes, my family was raised stems from the Delta area. Long history there. I kind of always, so my family is really big into oral history. And one of my heroes is actually my great-great-grandfather, obviously, of whom I do not know. I've never known. God, the man was born almost 200 years ago. Named Stanford. Stanford was sold from South Carolina to Louisiana. And, well, we've kind of been there ever since. So my family was pretty much born and raised in Louisiana and Mississippi. Migrated up here, and well, as a kid, you kind of don't have much of a say where you're going to go.
Right.
And so here I ended up. So I was pretty much raised in the south suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, which one?
Park Forest, actually.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Park Forest,
All right.
actually. I was raised in Park Forest. Still have great people there. My mom still lives there. And I don't get out there as much as I should due to sheer laziness. There's no grandiose reason behind it. But I talk to my mother quite frequently. So, yeah.
Excellent. And you visit often?
I try to.
Yeah.
I try to. God forbid, God knows, I do not get out there as much as I should. Going back to the whole ancestry thing, I bought my mom this ancestry DNA kit that she's been dying for. She's in total shock and denial that we do not have Native American blood.
So many Black Americans have been shocked by that.
She is like, well, you know what? I just think that it's just gonna pick up on yours. I'm like, you know what? Unless there's something that you're not telling me, like you're not my mom, it's not there. I'm like, you can shake that tree all you want. It's not there.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mommy, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let her swab and spit herself. And I will be there for moral support when she discovers
Okay.
there is no Native American running around here in us.
So you and I, when we spoke earlier this week, we talked about family, community, and vulnerability. And so I'd love to hear from you. What do those things mean to you in your life?
That's a great question. Family. So I think that family is so much more than this nuclear definition, right, of who we share blood and bone and, you know, kin with. I think that it extends far beyond that, especially when I think about, you know, the marginalized communities, which I come from, which I'm a part of, and those communities that I serve, right, is that we've been each other's family for so long that for me, that isn't chosen family. I consider it to be found family, right? I believe that we all come here more or less to rediscover one another. And I believe that it's just family reconnected again, if that makes any sense.
Rediscover one another. I love that.
Yeah, I do. I do. I think that we're here to rediscover each other over and over again. So I consider those individuals who are friends, if you will, they are my family. They're very much so my family.
Yeah.
It's funny because as I've aged, I have gotten away from my traditional Christian upbringing, and but yet and still, I consider Easter Sunday to be nothing but Thanksgiving in the springtime. Pretty much,
Okay.
So of course, I contacted my friends whose families are either far away or are not involved with them. I'm just like, hey, I'm cooking. You all want to come over on Sunday? So that's what we're doing. I'm playing Big Mama
You're playing
in a
Big Mama?
skinny body. I guess you could say. So yeah, I am. I'm being Big Mama, and it's an honor. It is an honor. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, when I think about family, that's what that means to me. Vulnerability, you asked me about, right?
We talked about this, and vulnerability is almost always talked about as if it's a negative only. And so I wanted to ask, how have you embraced vulnerability in your life, or have you? And when has vulnerability and embracing that helped you or hindered you?
I think it was Brene Brown that said,
I was just reading her today. Okay, go ahead.
she said that courage, right? Courage is telling the story of who you are with your whole heart. I guess having studied French, cœur. I mean, I think it's, what is it? Un cœur? Cœur is the heart.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And that quote resonated with me so much. And for me, vulnerability is just that. It is finding the space every day to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart, whether that is to yourself in the mirror or whether that is in front of others, And when I think about what it means to be an advocate, I think that advocacy at times lacks vulnerability. I think that when we think about advocacy and activism, we think of it from the lens of being brazen, from being, fists to the wall.
Yep.
And I do recognize that one of the core tenets of activism is impatience, right? And there's a good reason why you should be impatient. But however, I think that in that we forget at times the power of vulnerability. I think that vulnerability is something that wasn't lost on our foreparents, right? In their steadfastness at working towards the things that we are so eager, rightfully so, for. Do I ever view vulnerability as a deficit? I don't. I don't. I lean into the discomfort. I believe, kind of like, I guess in the words of Maya Angelou, it's that courage is not always necessarily expedient, but it is something that will cause you to sleep well at night. And without courage, you can do nothing.
Right.
You can do nothing. All things are built on courage. And I believe that is, whether it's the honesty to be yourself, to tell somebody, hey, look, I cannot support these behaviors, or whether having that hard conversation with yourself.
Right.
I think that there's this, I don't think that there's ever, I don't think that vulnerability can ever really be bad, truth be told.
What you shared by Dr. Maya Angelou is very profound. I remember reading that quote that was attributed to her, and she did say that of all of the virtues, she thinks courage is the most important, because without courage, you can't practice any of the other virtues.
Any of the virtues.
And so what is an example or two from your own life, something that's very meaningful to you, of how you have embraced your vulnerability and really had the courage to really speak truth to your own life and share parts of yourself with others that perhaps you did not, weren't ready to do at that time?
I think that I'm a walking, living, breathing entity of that, right? I think just by being a trans woman, you know, it's interesting because on one hand, I always tell people that I never came out. There was really never a coming out for me. It just kind of was more of a coming into, I guess you can say. It wasn't something that my family was ever surprised by, but there still had to be the proclamation thereof, right?
Right.
You know, and that took courage. I think every day to face your community, to your peers, your family, even to this day. Like, you know, there are family gatherings and there's those cousins that haven't seen you in a really long time, and you gird up your loins, as they say, to walk down those stairs with as much confidence as possible. But inside you are shuddering, right? Inside you are thinking like, wow, I do hope that you accept me. And I think the thing is that we think that that type of vulnerability is so bad. Oh, you shouldn't care about who doesn't accept you. That's pretty. That's lovely to think.
Yeah.
But we do.
But we're human. We're human.
We do care.
We have feelings.
We care.
You know, we have a heart. And we do want to be liked and loved by somebody. We may not need to be liked and loved by everybody, but we need to be liked and loved and respected by somebody.
And you just learn to recognize that, you know what, you're not going to win them all. There is going to be someone, be it family, be it a neighbor, be it whomever, someone's not going to see it for you. It's just what it is.
So with those in your family perhaps who did not respect and accept you, how did you find a way to move through that so that you could be spiritually intact and still have that confidence in who you are, but allow yourself to be vulnerable, you know, to be in space and in a community with your family?
Recognizing the fact that another Maya Angelou one, right? God, I can't remember who she quoted when she said this, but she said that nothing human can be alien to me. Nothing human. I am a human, and nothing human can be alien to me. So when I'm sitting across from individuals who find themselves a bit perplexed or a bit like, how did my cousin do this? I remember the fact, I have to think of the fact that if we were reversed, I would be doing that too. I'd be doing the same thing. If I were in your skin, with your brain, with your upbringing, with everything that you are seated with in this moment, my concept of me would be exactly what you're projecting to me. So I come to them from the lens of compassion.
Right.
Now, that is not, I don't exonerate you and allow you to bring your ignorance, you know, to harm me.
Sure.
But nevertheless, I recognize that, you know what, this is a human who is navigating through a world that is ever expanding and ever changing just like me.
Right.
And I hope that this individual is gifted one day with enough insight to be able to recognize that a world exists beyond just their own trajectory, I guess, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
And even give people an opportunity to grow and evolve, or not give them an opportunity, but don't sort of cut them out. I never will forget when I first came out, you know, as a gay woman, and my mom was very angry with me. I mean, very angry with me. And so our relationship, she never disowned me, but our relationship was really fraught and very strained for several years. And I remember some of my friends saying, Kelly, don't give up. You know, some parents don't come around, but some parents do. It just takes them a very long time. And I thought, I even got upset with a friend who told me that. I said, I'm telling you all these mean things she's saying, you know, she's dissed me, she's doing all this stuff. I mean, it's pie in the sky to think she's going to come around. She isn't. She'll never come around. Well, what's funny? She did come around eventually. It took 12 years, but she did. And she loves Tracy, and then she started sending cards addressed to both of us, and there was a really sweet moment that I'll never forget. It was Tracy and I recently got back from a wedding in Colombia, and I always call my mom before the plane takes off, and she said to me, she said, "Okay, you and Tracy have a lovely time." And I said, "Okay, we will." And she said, "I love you, Kelly." And I said, "I love you too." And she said, "But I hate to tell you, I love Tracy more."
That's awesome.
I'm like, wow, she has really come to a different place.
I know. But
I thought that was beautiful, though.
But you know something, I share a similar experience.
Yeah.
My mother, so I came out, if you will. Again, like I said, it really wasn't a coming out for me, but if you want to put a formality to it, I came out, if you will, my teens.
Okay.
I was a very young transition. So in my teens. And my mother was grieved. She didn't, like you said, she didn't disown me. But she was grieved. My father was grieved, right? It was not like this, there wasn't this like YouTube it gets better moment for me.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. My God.
Right.
You know, I just kind of imagine my mom to be like Toni Braxton and Unbreak My Heart when she was like crying all over. You know, yeah, like there was really one of those. Yeah, she really was. But you know, she did. She said, "I feel like someone died." And I honored that. I honored that, but I honored the fact that she worked through that grief. And the thing is that, well, the fact is that someone did die. Her expectation of me died.
Right.
And what I have to recognize is this, is that in life, I cannot be held accountable to what your expectation of me is.
Right.
That's not my responsibility to navigate.
You can't live a meaningful life that way.
That's your responsibility to navigate. But however, where my empathy lies is the fact that I will never know what it is to carry literally the child inside of you, and to carry such hope and expectation, and have an idea that you have this lifetime of expectation that is swarthing in your head. I will never know what it is to see myself from the lens of my mother laying on her chest for the first time. I will never know myself from that lens. So for that, I have great empathy. You know, I truly do. And my mother's one of my biggest fans. My mother's one of my biggest supporters. She was there at the Equality Illinois Gala. Yeah, my mom is one of my biggest critics. She's one of my biggest fans. She asks me, she goes, "Oh, I hope those shoes aren't too tight. I mean, I made sure I kept your feet straight and your teeth straight, and you know, all that other stuff. Oh,
I love it.
You know, you have such pretty hair. When are you gonna stop wearing that stuff?" You know, she.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, just yeah, you know, no, she's a mom. She's a mom, and my father was the same way. You know, again, they did the best they could with a child that they did not understand. And children in general throw you a curveball. I don't care who you are. I mean, I imagine that there's no like linear path to like raising a child, you know, but like Khalil Gibran said, right, children come through us, they're not of us.
Right, that's right.
They come through us, they're not of us. And it is your job as a parent to ensure that we do not do anything stupid enough to forfeit our destiny. That means chasing balls into the street and getting hit by cars.
Right. Yes.
Engaging in destructive substance use to the point where it might kill you. Getting arrested, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That's a parent's job.
Right.
It's my job to figure out the rest.
Exactly. So as a child, speaking of childhood, as a child, what were some of your biggest hopes or biggest dreams and fears, and are they the same as they are now as an adult? And if not, how have they changed?
That's an awesome question. What were some of my hopes, my biggest hopes and fears as a child? on a simplistic scale, one of my fears that I still have is I have this weird habit where at night when I sleep I have to keep the blanket over my ear.
Wow, really?
Something will get me. I swear
I
something
used to
will.
be like that with my
I s-
feet.
yeah, I think you said that. Yeah, I swear something is going to get me if I do not cover up my ear. I don't. Yeah, it's weird. Sorry,
I love
like
it.
out there, Landy or whatever. Um, on a more substantial level, you know something? I always had this deep-seated fear, and it's so sad to say, but as a kid, I was afraid of going to hell. Like that really freaked me out. But what's so funny is I wasn't afraid of going to hell based off of my identity. I was afraid of going to hell just being an asshole. I
I
was.
cannot imagine you as an
Oh, I
asshole for
was the
some
worst
reason.
kid. I was
Were
a
you?
horrible child.
In what way? Do tell. Do tell.
I was a very polite child.
Okay.
I was very polite. I was a very courteous child. I was the kid that would say, "Oh, hey, how you doing, Miss So and So? How's that third marriage going?"
Ooh.
I was one of those. I was one of those kids where you're like, "You son of a bitch."
So you were a shade thrower
I
at
was
3.
one of those kids like, "Oh, yeah, like, oh wow, oh, how was your summer? Oh wow." I see you like those shoes from last year. I was one of those kids. I was just a horrible kid. Yeah, but as funny as that is, I was a kid that was in so much pain. You know, I was a kid that was in a huge amount of pain, a huge amount of self-loathing, a huge amount of pain. Coming home to an environment where you were tolerated, where you were not celebrated, and that's why I hate tolerance, because tolerance is such a dull virtue.
It is.
It's such a
It's
dull
the bare
virtue,
minimum.
you know. So to all those who might be listening, who are like, I went to high school, I went to junior high, that forgive me. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I was a miserable kid, a much happier adult. So
And some of your hopes and dreams as an adult, are they similar?
so as a kid, my hope was I wanted to be an obstetrician. Interesting. So much for that. Yeah, I wanted to be. Then I wanted to be an anesthetist. I wanted to be an anesthesiologist.
Wow.
Then I said, well, I mean, I guess instead of putting people to sleep, I guess I'll wake them up. So, what do you know? I became an advocate.
Love it.
Um,
You
and-
touch people's lives in other ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, right? I mean, as awesome as it would be to, you know, just draw a line and put folks to sleep. I guess I draw my line in the sand and help people discover their power place, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
And I know that you actually are very supportive of young people
I am.
and the work that they're doing. Very much so.
And I don't even like young people.
Right. That's funny. And yet, in spite,
Yeah.
you care very much about them.
I do care about
and still
them.
mentor them.
I do.
And I want us to back up just a little bit because you said something that really
Okay.
stuck with me. When
All
we
right.
we're talking about vulnerability.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in terms of activism and advocacy, a lot of times on Facebook and Twitter, and this is something that is pervasive. Fist in the air,
Yes.
and a certain kind of anger.
Sure.
Some anger is constructive, but there's a certain kind of anger that I find unconstructive at best and destructive at worst. A particular type of call-out culture. And I know that this is something that in the past that you have commented on as well. And
Yes, I have.
it's almost like a very mean-spirited way of doing activism, but that some people think is woke. And so I'm just wondering from your perspective, and this isn't something, by the way, that only younger people do, but I know that you do a lot of work with younger people, so I just want to put that out there.
Yes.
A lot of older people do this
Sure.
as well. But how do you sort of encourage or educate or foster something else, a different kind of awareness, or perhaps another way people can channel their righteous anger? How do you support people in understanding that, and that it's not only in the what, but how you do things? That vulnerability doesn't have to be mean. It's okay first of all, it's okay to be vulnerable, and you can be an activist and not resort to
Yeah.
that.
brokenness begets brokenness. And what are you actually doing? What service are you doing in this world if you are actually creating more broken people? And I know that there are people in this world who, man, God, make this space that we live in so challenging to walk around, right? But I always look for the opportunity to teach. I always look for the opportunity to find some type of middle ground. I always look at people with believing eyes, regardless of what walk of life they're from. I liken myself to be able to sit with what we would consider the worst of them, and to be able to find some type of middle ground with you. And I don't think that is selling out. I do not think that is anything negative. I think that it's just remembering that regardless of who is sitting in front of you, regardless of what, that's a human. It's a human who wants and hopes and dreams for a better life just like anybody else. You know, and sometimes we're just really super misguided in our attempt at achieving that thing. You know, I just see a lot of people who feel certain folks who have platforms are not entitled to that platform. And they themselves, because of that lack, want to pull other people off of theirs or criticize them for having it. You know?
Right.
I see that a lot. I see that a lot. I see people who have really loud voices, but that's just it. They're just loud.
Right.
And I don't necessarily see the fruit behind their work, you know? And I do. I really wish that people would do more calling in. I wish that we would approach more of what we do with more empathy. I do. I wish that we would seek to gain more understanding, you know, before we just go head first into battle with everybody.
Right.
I truly do.
Right.
You know. Yeah. And again, we need those individuals who are bold and brazen enough to say, you know what, enough of this talk.
Absolutely.
You know, let's get it done. You know. But I liken this world to being like a house, right? And we cannot all just do the windows. Somebody has to take the floors. Somebody has to do the walls. Somebody has to take on each piece in this house in order to actually get it done. Right. You know? And I think that that's what we're missing, is that everybody has their role. Everyone does. Yeah. And everyone's role is valuable.
Yep, and to respect that.
Absolutely.
And to respect that. And also, I think sometimes I think when it comes to social media too, because there are so many posts and notifications and dings and those kinds of things, it can be really tempting at times to think that you have to respond to everything or be so certain about everything right on the dot and respond right away. And there's something to be said sometimes for taking a pause. And it's okay to not have a firm opinion on everything.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to ask questions, not just make statements and declarations. And one can be direct and have convictions, and at the same time be very respectful and thoughtful with their words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We just forget, like, my God, I'm like, where did all this meanness come from? I for the life of me, I do not understand it. Like, where did we get so freaking mean in all of this, just making it very plain? What, and I don't want to say what happened, because I do see what happened, right? I see why folks are, but still, it's just like, what happened to the wanting to understand? What happened to the compassion in all of this? I just do not, for the life of me, get it. I don't get it. You know? Yeah, it's just really disheartening. It's really disheartening. This call out culture is just silencing individuals into just fear. People are too afraid to actually want to do something.
To want to do something, or heaven forbid, have the wrong view,
Oh
or
my
use the
God, that
wrong
drives me
word for
crazy.
something, or that
Yes.
kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that there has to be a way to be able to be vulnerable enough to ask a question or share an opinion and risk perhaps being ignorant about something.
Yes.
Or maybe we may mess up and use a word that is not seen as respectful, but it doesn't mean that someone had malicious intent. So there has to be a way we can all learn and also educate each other in a way that is not punitive, in a way that's not destructive, and understand that our words do matter.
Our words do matter.
Our
And,
words matter.
As a trans person, I hear a lot of trans people, and rightfully so, say, I'm tired of educating other people and I shouldn't have to. I agree. But I'm not tired. I'm not tired.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you asking me, you know what, I don't get it. And can you support me in understanding this? I'll do it.
Right.
I'll do it. I'm okay with that. Because this is the thing again, is that, as I said, if I were in your skin and in your bones and in your experience, I would be thinking exactly like you. And there's the whole thing of, oh, we don't use the word. It's kind of like the frickin' whiz, right? The color's green today. Oh, wouldn't be caught dead in red. There's always something that's changing, right? Today it's transgender. Yesterday it was transsexual, and today it's like, oh my God, and now what? If I
language evolves.
It does evolve, and we owe responsibilities to keep up.
Yeah, right.
But I will support you in keeping up as best as I can, as long as you're willing to run the race.
Yes, as long as you're willing to try.
As long as you're willing
and
to
taking
try.
responsibility for your learning.
There you go.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I have a couple other questions for you.
Please, yes.
So what are some things about you that you think people would be surprised to know?
Oh, wow. So the more comical thing is that I have never tasted coffee. See, look at the gas in the room.
I can't start my day without coffee.
Everyone's like, so on the next episode, this lady just goes off. Right.
Wow.
I've never tasted coffee. Grew up in a house full of it, never tasted it.
Wow.
Nor have I tasted beer. Never tasted it. Yeah.
Wow. No beer, no coffee.
Never tasted it. And now it's just become such a conversation piece. I don't want to taste it.
Oh wow.
I won't know what to talk about anymore. I won't have an introduction.
I know what our next outing will be.
Yeah, coffee.
Shannon, let's get coffee.
Oh my God, I'll have tea. I'll have tiramisu. I've had that.
Okay. All right.
I am a Orisha devotee.
Really?
I am.
So tell us more about that. For those who might not know what an Orisha devotee is?
So I practice what is called Ifa. And Ifa is traditional African spirituality. I am of the belief, I believe in more of a pantheism opposed to what you would call a classical monotheism. I mean, I look at it like this. Anybody who puts their soul salvation into a singular person might be in a cult. Just saying. Just saying.
Okay. That's just your view, right?
You're
like, that's just
and like I said, I'm not subbing
yes.
no one. But again, I do believe in a singular God, but I believe that God expresses itself in all things in nature, including you and I.
Yes.
Trees and leaves and dogs and cats and fish and rivers.
It's interesting. That's really interesting here. I practice Nichiren Buddhism.
Okay.
And I chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and which is the mystic law. And we, from our view, the mystic law is in everything.
It's in
all
everything.
Human beings, plants, animals,
Yes.
animate and inanimate objects,
Absolutely.
everything.
It's in everything.
Everything.
So for me, the Orisha is our expressions of divinity, of our expressions of God poured out into nature. So I myself am what you would call a child of Oshun. So that's who I was crowned as, Oshun and Yemaya. So Oshun is she is what you would consider, I guess we can say, on a lay scale, the goddess of sweetness and love and fertility, and Yemaya is the mother. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that's my spiritual construct.
And how does your spiritual practice shape your life?
Oh my goodness, immensely. That God is in all things and in all people, and that's where I like to believe I get my compassion from. That again, I can see humanity in the most profoundly unqualified individuals that sit on Capitol Hill, and yeah, I mean,
Yes.
he's profoundly humane. I mean, my God, you see it all the time. I'm just like, poor guy. Like, that's, yeah. To what you would coin the best of us. You know, we're all human. You know, we all cry at some point. We all, you know, we all, like I said, we all want to do well, I believe. I truly do. Also, too, I guess to add to that, I earnestly believe that there is something beyond this. I do.
Yeah.
And I like to believe that we will all be pleasantly surprised once we get there.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes pray and I say that I hope, and I know to some people that's just such a brazen statement, but I hope that I hope there is heaven for the worst of us. I do. I hope there is heaven for the worst of us. I cannot imagine how unbelievably surreal it would be for God to call the most heinous of individuals names. You know, because at the end of the day, that is still a special and unique creation that only God knows why that individual did what they did.
Right.
I'm not privy to your innermost workings.
Sure.
I do not know.
Right.
I don't know. I hope that you can only commit to not perpetuating those grievances ever again.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's fascinating to me. I did not know that about you.
That is something about me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I am not as conservative as folks would like to believe that I am. But I wouldn't say that. But I wouldn't say that I am as classically liberal as folks might perceive either. I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
In the middle.
I think I'm kind of a moderate in a strange way. You know, I still prefer my pancakes with syrup.
I do too. I do too.
I like syrup.
And I like real maple syrup.
Yeah. Not my grandma. I don't like Alaga, but you know.
Oh, that stuff is so thick. Oh my goodness.
No, I'm not going there.
No. Love it. So, you know, I don't know if some of you out here know, but Shannon has these fabulous daily reflections.
Oh my gosh.
She has these amazing daily reflections on Facebook, and they are full of honesty and wisdom about, you know, developing ourselves, about relationships with other people, whether they are intimate romantic relationships or friendships, about how we treat ourselves and others, and about how we take responsibility for our lives and care for ourselves and others, and how we handle success and defeat. And I look for your daily reflections because they really are just phenomenal. And I'd love to share just a few with y'all.
I am very interested in hearing this.
Because these are just so good.
This is going to be a tickle.
Okay. Someone doesn't like you, and that same person is even more upset because you don't care. F them. Hashtag good night all. I love them. Here's another one I think is really cool. Be careful who you talk bad about. Today's read just might be your supervisor tomorrow.
Just saying.
That has actually happened before. You know, too.
I've turned many a corners and said, hi. I'm Shannon.
Nice
and
to
they're
meet
like,
you.
oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
And a couple more. A lot of you keep stressing yourself out over grown folks. Sometimes the greatest disservice you can do for somebody is to constantly come to their rescue. If they were grown enough to get into their mess, let them be grown enough to get out of it. Their emergencies are not your responsibility. And then this one I found really profound about love. I'm of the belief that love may start with emotions and feelings, but it isn't dependent on it. Love is a decision, and it doesn't depend on appearances or performance. Rather, instead, it celebrates strength, and you must work hard on it. When dealing with realistic love, knowledge, wisdom, and emotional maturity reign supreme.
I did say that.
Yeah, you did say that.
My goodness.
And in addition to just the valuable message and again the wisdom, I also admire your wit, sometimes your sarcasm, and your candor. But I mean, they're really fantastic. And so my question is, have you ever thought about compiling these? I like to call them Shannonisms. I coined that word.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Shannonisms, and maybe compile a book or something like that, because I'd buy it. I would.
You know what is so crazy is that I haven't. I think for myself, I'm just like, really? Like, someone would want to read that? I'm like, I imagine probably like when I leave this planet of existence, somebody will, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, they made all that money off of me.
So you got to beat them to it.
I know, right? You know, I don't know. And see, here's how I look at it.
What inspired you to start those,
Sure.
by the way?
I always loved writing. I always have been a writer. And I believe that, and I always wanted to be a teacher too. That's another thing I always wanted to be. And I believe that teachers teach. But I believe that a good teacher and wisdom takes issues that are complex and makes them simple. And I believe that it is also wisdom to speak the language of your audience. You know, a lot of times we view intelligence as being able to regurgitate all of this academia and sound impressive, right? We become pedantics. But in fact, I guess as the Bible says, that you are a noisy gong or a cymbal. There is no love in what you are saying, because in fact you are only invested in hearing yourself. You are not invested in reaching an audience.
A monologue versus a conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever I do those daily passages or whatever, I think about, you know what, my Facebook page, my friends list, God in heaven, consists mostly of young people. And I'm just like, you know what? Why would I actually, what would it profit them and me to be so heady? So I just speak to them. I'm just like, you know what, like my mom said, hell, don't underestimate your lifespan. You might live longer than you think. Save something. Simple.
Yes.
And
anybody can get that,
Exactly.
can really understand that.
But
Yeah.
what's really underlying to that is this. This is a community who has prepped themselves to die for the last 40 years. And we have prepped ourselves for a will. Who we're going to leave this to? What kind of funeral am I going to have? A trans woman, like they said, what is life expectancy? Life expectancy is 30, 35 for a trans woman. You've got individuals who, by virtue of their identity, are middle-aged by the time they're 15 and a half. Okay? So nobody actually preps to live. And when I was working in the jail, I told someone, I said, you know what, someone in this room is going to live to be 100, if not damn near. And what are you going to do? You're so busy thinking that you're not going to live long. What if you live to be very, very, very old? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I just like to bring into play that practicality, because a lot of people do not have the practical mother that's actually nagging them in their ear, that is actually saying to them, it's Saturday, wash your hair. I don't know, whatever, you know. But again, it's those things, right? It's those things. And if you're not making things understandable for folks, then you are not doing your job. You know, I work with people who are incredibly bright, incredibly intelligent, incredibly brilliant. And I read and I look at things that they put out, and I'm just like, well, this is beautiful, and I know what you're saying. But do you really believe that other people do?
Right.
And do you know how many other people are afraid to admit, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, because if I say this, I'm going to look stupid.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And when we talk about bravery, sometimes someone has to be that one person in the room to say, I don't get it.
Right.
Because you know what happens? There's a cascade of others that say, I didn't get it either.
But because you were brave
Yeah.
to say it,
Yes.
then it almost gives permission for other people
It
to
does.
just take a breath of relief, a sigh of relief.
It does. And that's what my Facebook posts are for me. It's just me just saying, hey, look, I cannot promise you that you're going to always be the apple of this person's eye. I cannot promise you that they're going to wake up every morning and be absolutely in love with you. But I do pray that he or she or they love you. And I believe that there is a significant difference between in love and love, right? In love is the butterflies, it's the oh, I'm gonna write my name 100 times behind your last name, and yeah, that's great, you know. But I promise you wake up in the morning, you look at each other, hey, morning, and it becomes incredibly droll, very commonplace, but what's important is that you love each other.
That's right.
And love to me is that which is built upon respect. Love is on my worst day with you, I want nothing more than to wake up and go to sleep next to you. That there is nothing more in this world that I want more than your well-being. You know, in love is incredibly dependent upon emotions.
Right.
That is subject to be thrown out the window the moment you offend me.
That's right.
The moment you offend me. So I take love over in love any day.
Ditto.
Love is a fireplace, right? And you have to ask yourself, well, which one is more important, the flames or the fireplace? And flames without a space of intention is destructive.
Right.
I don't want anyone madly in love with me. Listen to it, madly in love.
That does not sound good. And yet people use that expression all the
Exactly.
time and really want that kind of.
They do because that's all they know. But again, when we think about the analogy of the fireplace, sure, fireplace without flames is awfully cold, but the two of you can ignite it, you know, when you get ready.
Right.
Yeah, so I'd rather have the structure than the flames.
Wow.
I'd rather have the structure.
Oh, that analogy. I've never heard it put that way.
I'd rather have the
That's
structure.
incredible. Yeah.
As long as we have the structure, we can always reignite the flames. But once everything burns down, that's it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah, I guess.
Before we turn it over to questions via the live stream,
And I love questions.
and the as well as our live audience here, I'd like to ask you one more question.
Sure.
So I created this podcast, right, to have brave and bold conversations, again, that move us beyond the safe and superficial. So for you, what does living a brave and bold life mean? And what words of encouragement can you share with those who want to live a brave and bold life?
Living a brave and bold life for me is being in alignment with your core values and visions. And to always remember that nobody owes you to be anything you want them to be. You only owe that to yourself. Going back to the vein of love versus in love, we hold our partners accountable for what we want them to be. If only you would be this, if only you would be that, if you would just be this to me, then I wouldn't feel. That's incredibly selfish. I can say exactly the same. I can say exactly who I want to be. It is your responsibility to find that which is in alignment with your values and vision.
Right.
And if I value you enough, or perhaps I will compromise here and there, but if I don't, it's for you to get going. It's for me to get going. My partner doesn't owe me to change. I owe it to myself to be in constant alignment with what I want. That's your job. That's your relationships. That's your friendships. That's your relationship with your families. Companies though, people, this company needs to do, no, you probably should leave.
Right.
The vision of this house is as such was written in our mission statement.
Right.
If you are not in alignment with the mission statement, then you should move. It's just 1 + 1 is 2. That's why I say the teacher teaches. It is made. If you're overcomplicating things, then you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Right.
That's it. That's it. I don't spend all that time trying. Shifting culture is cool, and there's a time and a place to do it.
Sure.
But at some point, you got to think about, like, man, I got 2 feet too. I'm just gonna move.
Right.
I'm just gonna find my own kin. I'm gonna find my own people. That's it.
I love that. So living in alignment with your core values,
Yes.
and also not expecting other people to meet
No.
your expectations of them. So
No.
that's a way of living a very bold and brave life. That's
Absolutely.
brilliant.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Anybody have questions that they want to call out, or anything you'd like to share? I'll repeat it after you raise it so that people on the live stream can hear.
Feel free.
Okay, great.
The question is, Shannon, what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? Man, that's a simple question. Someone's sitting here like, girl, what do you like to just do? Man, that's a simple but complicated question. You know what? Honestly, I love good friends, good food, good wine, and good conversation. I do. That's it. I'm a very simple person who loves, I do not care for superfluous conversation. I don't care. It's obvious that we're having nice weather because we're both standing outside.
Right. So you don't like small talk sometimes?
I don't.
It's hard for you?
I don't. I'm just like, sure, but can you tell me what that scar on your elbow means?
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's a good one. Yes, Yvonne.
Shannon, you partially answered this question,
Okay.
but can you expand on how to balance the urgency around some advocacy issues and vulnerability?
So the question is how to balance some of the urgency around advocacy issues and vulnerability.
That you have to recognize that there's going to always be a need, but without your ability to self-preserve, like my best friend told me, she goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I see so many individuals who are out here fighting the good fight, but are just running themselves, wearing themselves thin, and they feel they must answer every call at every time of the night and be responsible for everything. And if this happens, and if that happens, and it's my responsibility, and I have to be there. And I'm just like, you know what? No, you don't. No, you don't. Because there's always going to be a need. And what's more important in that balance is that we are raising up individuals to be able to pick up where we left off. Same way we do with that runner who passes that baton. That's it. You're not designed to run the entire race. But what you are designed to do is run your course, and you pass that baton to the next person so they can keep on going.
That's a good one.
I hope that answered it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Sure.
You said I would be doing the same thing if I was you. That's so
That's
beautiful
true.
and so
That's true.
wise. But how do you get people? Again, this is about advocacy. How do you give people permission to advocate for issues around racism, equality, justice, all those stuff, and still be able to sit across from somebody and say what you say? How do you do that?
Could you hear the question? Okay.
Repeat that one more time, because I want to.
It's you said I would be doing the same thing if I were you, right? So, and that's in line with when you talked about you don't mind educating people.
Yes.
If it will help to improve the world, right? So I think that's really beautiful and profound and wise. But the question is, how do you get people to understand that it is okay to do that, that you're not sacrificing
I get you.
anything?
I get what you. Okay, I got you.
It is the road
Sure.
to justice and fairness.
Sure. Again, to what I just said earlier, everybody wants at the core a good life, and I guess we can say to be good. It's just that we've got so many people who feel so frustrated that they will never get it, that they will never please everybody, that everything that they do or say is just going to be messed up, that we've got people who are just extremely angry and are just saying, you know what, F it, forget it. And I think that until we actually support individuals in their wanting to get it, then we're just going to keep on revisiting the same thing over and over again. I do believe that there are people out here who honestly really do want to get it, but it's hard. When I think about this white lash, if you will, that we had, everybody wants to be privileged. Everyone. Everyone wants
exactly.
privilege.
Yep.
Everybody wants privilege.
may
You're a
say they
liar
don't,
and
but they
ashamed
do.
to say that you don't.
Right.
And you know something? We're all afraid of the loss of privilege too. And when people on a whole have been written a bad check and told because of your race you are entitled to this, and it turns out you're not, that has to suck. It has to suck to be duped. But at some point, folks have got to wake up and say, damn, being white is not going to work out for me. Man, you mean Gone with the Wind was a lie? I'm not going to sit on my veranda. I'm not going to fan myself. No one's going to serve me lemonade. Damn. And I'm going to hug you and let you cry. I'm going to pat your back, and I'm going to say, so now what do you want to do? And if you don't want to do anything, then I'm going to leave you right there crying. But if you do, then come on and let's do this work and fix this mess. And that's what it is. We've all been sold. We've all been given a bad check. All of us. The people way up here, this few percent of people have tricked us all. And we've got to see that. At some point, we've got to see that. We've got to see that we've all been duped.
Right.
And okay, what are we going to do now that we recognize this? So, yeah, no worries.
Yes. Angie.
So you said you can't like drink from an empty cup. You can't like fill anything from an empty cup.
Yeah.
And so, but everything that you're talking about takes a lot of energy.
It
Vulnerability
does.
takes energy. Courage takes energy. Having compassion for people takes a whole lot of energy. Not to mention just like the everyday of like being a person in this world.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Oh my God, yes.
So I'm wondering, how do you fill that cup? Like, how do you make sure that you have the energy and the space to keep doing the work that is so exhausting? And because it's something that, and does that mean, and I guess how does that relate to the folks that you work alongside? Like, how do you help other folks, if that's something that you do, make sure that they keep their cups filled?
That's an awesome point. What's your name again?
Angie.
Angie, that's an awesome question. Thank you. So going back to my spiritual practices, I have an ancestor altar, and they're my counsel. They're my beloveds, and I sit there and I kind of just pour myself and I meditate and I refill myself, because I don't know if anybody in particular has the capacity to fill me up. I don't, right? And when I think about my people, I stem from a people who lay spoon fashion in the hull of a ship on a hellish journey and somehow survived. And they were unleashed into a burning prison field, and they survived subjugation and segregation and all of these things that were set into place to kill them. And yet they survived. And here I am, And that motivates me every single day to continue to keep going, to continue to keep going, to continue to keep on doing this work, And it's challenging. It's really challenging. And as far as what we can do to, you said, what was the last part you said?
Or just, how do you, because none of us does this work by ourselves.
Yes.
Right? We're always working in community or being in community in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, if this is something that you feel
No,
called
yeah,
to do,
sure.
but either by leading by example or by encouraging folks, supporting other folks, and also making sure that their cups are full?
Just by doing that. I just, when I feel my cup is full, I circle back to you and I figure out what it is. Well, you tell me what it is that you need in order for me to support you, and I do the best that I can. And that's it. I first and foremost, want to hear the person who's sitting in front of me, want to hear what their need is. Do I have the capacity for that? And I've learned to become very honest with people. And I tell people, I'm like, hey, look, I hear your need, but I don't have the capacity to be this thing that you're looking for right now. I don't. I never want to do anybody a disservice, So I approached them with honesty, recognition that this is somebody who is seeking something, and I'm going to give you the best that I can give you. And if I can't give that, then the least I'm going to do is not hurt you. So I hope that answers your question as best as it could.
Very honest.
Yeah.
That's honest.
Yeah.
Is there another question from the live stream? We good? Any other questions here from the live audience?
Any questions?
Or reflections?
I love a good question.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Shannon, so much for being our conversation partner tonight, and actually not only having a brave and bold conversation with me, but being vulnerable with me. And holding space with us all. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Shannon again, and I also want to thank all of you in the live audience. Thank you. Much love to all of you in the live stream. I really appreciate your tuning in and for your comments and support and encouragement. So know that I'm always thinking of you, and I have tremendous gratitude for you. I'd like to thank again Affinity Community Services for collaborating on this podcast with me. I love doing this every month. And so as a reminder, this podcast, Living Room Chats at Affinity, a podcast for brave conversations and bold voices, takes place the third Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So our next podcast will be Wednesday, May 15th. And again, it'll be live streamed here at Affinity in front of a live audience. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Have a good night. And in the meantime, be good to yourselves and to others. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Yay. That was lovely.
Awesome. I really enjoyed this.